Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Mike Glanz with us. Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mike, you're the CEO of HireAHelper, so let's start with that. Tell us about HireAHelper. What is it?
HireAHelper is a marketplace for moving labor providers. We let customers shop for small moving companies that will help load and unload rental trucks. So kind of a way to hack together a do-it-yourself move.
Gotcha. So your customers are people that they're moving possibly, they don't want to hire a full-on moving company, but they don't necessarily want to do it themselves. You're kind of an intermediate strategy to hack it together, as you say.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Usually it costs about a third the cost of a full service move.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of do-it-yourselfers who have us take care of the big items, or just the loading, unloading, and they'll drive a rental truck themselves.
Yeah. Now, what was the reason behind starting it? Was it a personal reason, or you just saw an opportunity in this market? What was your thinking there?
Actually, my co-founder and I loaded and unloaded rental trucks while we were in college, and we saw that it was it's kind of a better way to move. You could, get the manual labor, the hard stuff out of the way without paying for the packing, which ended up being the majority of the cost most of the time involved in moving.
Mm-hmm.
We felt like a marketplace was really the way to go. We knew there were a lot of other companies out there like doing what we were doing, but not necessarily. They didn't have the web presence or the infrastructure that the big moving companies had. So we thought, if we could kind of consolidate all of them and put them in this marketplace, make them accessible to people, people would, like us, like our parents would use that.
So your real innovation is creating a marketplace, not just a one-off. You can hire us in your local city, but it's a marketplace for any city, right?
It is, yeah. We're in all 50 states. We do. I think this past August we did a little over 5,000 moves
Wow.
in 1 month. So we're all over the country and growing pretty rapidly.
Yeah. And what date did you all launch HireAHelper?
We launched in 2007. In
Okay.
June. Mm-hmm.
So you have 6 years under your belt now. What kind of revenue have you guys had over the year, or what kind of numbers can you disclose to give us an idea of your growth?
We've continually grown at 50% year over year since our first or second year in inception.
Mm-hmm.
We've processed a little over 8 million this year so far.
Wow.
In payments for moving companies. So
Yeah, that's great. Now, growing that fast, processing and having to deal with that many individual moves, what were some of the growing pains that you experienced with HireAHelper over the last 6 years or so?
We've had a lot of every year it just seems like it's a different thing. Early on we got sued by a competitor, and that was a year or two that it made for tough decisions, being cash strapped and trying to prioritize marketing versus development.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently it's been getting to the more of a medium-sized company, dealing with HR issues and personnel, to what do we do when the capital markets are closed?
Mm-hmm.
It's been every year. I guess it just seems like it's kind of a different thing. We learn a lot every year.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to go through to get to the size you guys are at. Now, one of the things you have to do is you have to manage a number of remote employees, because like we said, your innovation is really making it a marketplace, which is great, but now you have to manage the marketplace. And you do some innovative things to manage the remote employees. And tell me if I'm wrong, but one of them is a scoreboard tracking system. So tell me about that a little bit. What does that mean?
Yeah, we have since early on we've wanted to incentivize our customer service reps not to just book jobs, but to to provide good customer service. You read about this, companies like Zappos, and we kind of innovated our own scoring system for what was important to us, what we thought was important to our customers. We made this scoreboard, and it tracks a number of metrics from customers called and messages and how fast we get back to customers or pick up the phone, to the number of jobs and number of cancellation rates, and having all of that and then publishing all of that so all of the employees, not even in the customer service department, but in the entire company can see, has really been key. That level of transparency is there when someone's not performing. It's not between you and your manager; it's between you and your teammates. And that's gone a long way in letting us continue to innovate and continue to be a leader in customer service in our industry.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I bring that up is because I talk to a lot of companies that are almost 100% software based, so they're a little different than you guys. And analytics is something they bring up a lot, having a lot of analytics, being transparent about them. But then you guys are actually taking that to where you're a marketplace, but you're also a physical offline service that the marketplace is connecting people with, and you're still using analytics down that pipeline to let people know what's going on and to make things more efficient. So I think it's just one of those instances where we see the mindset of growth hacking. Eventually it's going to be in a lot of other businesses that aren't purely web-based, and I think you guys are kind of on the cusp of that. Now you also give out prizes. Is that right, for different metrics and different things?
Yeah, we do. Amazon gift cards seem to be the prize of choice, but we do things company-wide. You go out to a bar for happy hour, or we live in San Diego, go to the Del Mar races. If we hit a certain goal for a month, to individual prizes like the Amazon gift cards for setting a record of the most jobs ever booked in a month, or the most jobs ever booked in February. The most issues resolved is the big one that people compete for a lot. And we like to incentivize those things and make it, the competition's one thing, or the prize is one thing, but the competition is really the key. Is seeing your name up there, and I closed 27 issues on August 3rd of 2013, and everyone's going to be gunning for you, and that's made the environment fun, and nowadays the fun and positive work environment is so much more key to motivating employees than just the financial side of compensation. So, and you know what? At the end of the day, my co-founder Pete and I, we just look at it as a lot of times it's just where would we want to work, and and we do work. How do we want things to work, and what's fun, and we make a lot of decisions based on that.
Yeah, sometimes we overcomplicate business, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So as you've grown your user base, what do you attribute your growth to more than anything? I mean, you guys are processing 8 million. You had 5,000 moves in August, I think you said. What do you attribute that kind of growth to? If you had to point to a few things.
I would say, there's a few things that we've done that I feel like we've done right. One, we've always been, before it was even a word, I guess, a lean startup, and we've been very focused on, picking the projects that are going to be most beneficial to the company. And kind of our history with having to run real lean during a lawsuit kind of forced that upon us, and just kind of become part of the culture. And then, along with that, really early on, we're just in over our heads with the company, with the growth, with the legal troubles, with everything, and that just forced both Pete and myself to just start asking questions and seeing who could help us. We don't even know what to do. I think that's something that I think most new entrepreneurs just miss, is that even if you're a startup and doing something no one else has done before, everything to some extent has been done. There's nothing new under the sun. There's someone who's dealt with a similar issue, and there'll be multiple people who've dealt with it in different ways. And finding those people, seeking them out, and getting their advice is easy. And following the advice It's not always easy, and sorting out what the good from the bad. But I think that helped a lot early on. Is getting that mentorship.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of that mentorship a little bit. How did you find the people that you wanted to get advice from? Did you just find them online? Is it people that you ran into locally? Where did you find those mentors?
Back in the day, we thought we wanted venture capital, and we started reading about it, and we found the site that funded. And there's other sites like that too. Now there's a lot more that are out there that provide access to to networking with individuals. And I had posted something on there, asking some questions, and the response I got back was just amazing. CEOs of huge companies emailing back, and people offering free help, and I mean, too good to be true. I thought everyone must be trying to sell something, and that was really kind of my foray into this world of like small and large business owners that really are rooting for the underdog. And they're just amazing people. A couple of people that stand out, there's Rick Valencia of a company called Profit Line in San Diego, took time and for months and months, helped us and advised us. And even when times were really tough, found us free office space, for like, because he's a nice guy and because he was an entrepreneur once. Aaron Matos of jobbing.com contacted us. We sat down with him, and he gave us great advice on growing a company and on focus. We were like 2 months old. No one had ever heard of us. It was just crazy to see those kind of doors open. Just because in this country everyone's rooting for the underdog, and everyone's rooting for that you as an entrepreneur are going to make your American dream, I guess, come true.
Yeah. And so what did your relationship with them look like? Was it reaching out one time, getting some advice, and that was kind of it? Was it an ongoing, you're going to talk on the phone once a month? How did it shape out for you guys?
It was different in every circumstance. And honestly, I feel like the relationships that kind of lasted the longest were just the ones that I followed up with. I feel like all of them had made themselves available. I flew out and sat down for lunch with Aaron of Jobbing, and he gave us some advice. I mentioned Rick had used his connections in San Diego to get us office space and help us out and stuff. Tim Berry is the founder of Palo Alto Software and a writer for, I think, Inc. magazine. And for years, he would ask how stuff was going and make connections or offer advice. And he was my entrepreneur who didn't raise money, and he would give me advice on stay away from the venture capitalists. Like, this is what I did, and this is why it works. And Aaron would say stuff like, well, I've raised $100 million now, or however much Jobbing's raised, and he would share the other side of it. And so I feel like I can't even think of anyone who would offer advice one time and not follow up. I feel like even today, if I emailed any one of those guys that they'd be available, there's just so many successful business people out there that are just willing to share a mentor.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what's the best piece of advice that you ever received from one of these mentors? Something that just really was a game changer for you?
There's one significant one that I would say probably really has impacted us more than anything. And again, Aaron had told us early on, we were probably 30 days old at the time, and he said add a zero. And what he meant by that is when you're picking projects and when you're picking what to target and what to focus on, you have projects that are huge, like this could make us $1 billion in 10 years, and these other small projects are like, well, if we do this today, it'll make us $100 tomorrow, and it's really hard to know where to target. Should you aim for the things that's just going to make you the next $100 immediately, and not kind of worry about those far off things until you have time for those? Or should you work on the big long things and then risk running out of money before you ever finish them? And so his, I guess, guidance was to add zero was, if you're doing $100,000 a year right now, then determine what it is that you need to do that will get you to $1 million a year as fast as possible, and go for that. And he said, I think at the time he said, you guys are at $10,000. What do you have to do to get to $100,000? And he was like, it's the same thing. And it's like, I'm at $100 million now, and we're trying to get to $1 billion. Or I don't remember what his numbers were at that time, but and he's like, that gives you just enough guidance, to shoot for projects that have long-term value, but at the same time, aren't just like the hack together, like quick make a buck schemes. You're really focusing on the combination of the growth of the company as well as like the long-term value and quality of the company. And that has been instrumental in how we look at things and how we plan for the future.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like great advice, and it's great because it's a moving target. You never arrive and check it off. There's always a way to add a zero, because when you're at 10,000, you had to get to 100. When you're at 100,000, you're getting to 1 million, and now you're getting ready to add a zero again when you get to 10 million. And so it's always kind of a moving target. It's the carrot ahead of the dog on the dog track kind of thing, or the horse, Yep. So how have you guys practically put that into play? What are some of the things, or maybe one thing, that you've done at HireAHelper to try to add a zero? At least in theory, that was what you were trying to do.
Okay, so if you want to go real nuts and bolts, real practical, we had some potential for partnerships. It's like 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and we had realized that kind of some of these partnerships were the biggest opportunity for growth that we had, especially to go from our at the time we're talking 1 million to go to 10 million, but what we really needed. Some of these partnerships is we needed the products. Like, we could go out there and we could say that we could do certain things, but since we hadn't proved it, we couldn't make those promises without actually having a tangible product to go out there and sell. So we went out and that led us to raising a small amount of debt, $250,000. Which we're very debt adverse personally, so this was a big change for us in the business, actually taking a huge amount of money out and spending it before we had made any sales off of it, and building out a product for our partners. And what we built out was kind of a white label platform, a marketplace for movers is what we had, but we wanted to give that marketplace for movers to potential partners. Whose customers would want the marketplace as well. And we felt like there was demand for it. We felt like it was a really good way for us to grow. And that was our best chance. So, if this is right, if adding a zero, if that's the target we should do, then we should do whatever we can to get there as fast as possible. So we borrowed the money, we hired some programmers, we built the white platform, we went out there, and like 3 months later, we're on the homepage of 1-800-PACK-RAT and on pods, portable storage containers, and become the service provider for them to load and unload these storage containers, which is a huge industry for us. And within 6 months of kind of making the decision to go after it, we had actually signed the 2 biggest players in the industry. And after that, almost every single small portable storage company after that came to us and said, "Well, we're on Pod site. Well, we want you." So, and that was it worked out really well for us. And I think that's probably like the best example of us really. It wasn't intuitive to us at the time to borrow money to build something. We're more conservative than that usually, but it worked out.
Wow. So when you say you took debt of $250,000, you said it was personal debt or like VC angel debt? What was it?
We actually took the money from a company called Lighter Capital, and they do alternative style financing called revenue-based financing. So it's and and it's higher interest, but it's not tied to me and my investors' personal credit. I don't have the credit or or money to co-sign a loan for $250,000. So that was really important to us. We get a little bit higher interest for it, but I mean, right now it's impossible as kind of a medium-sized business to get funding almost any other way. So it worked out for us. I think we ended up, their whole model is based on the better you do, the higher interest you pay. And I think we probably capped what what we paid them on interest because we did so well, but it worked out. So
yeah, that's incredible. That's such a good story about taking a big risk, but it was based on the advice of wise mentorship. You thought it was the best path, you went for it, and now all this extraordinary growth is because of an early bet you made that you thought would add a zero. I think there's so much that people can learn as they're watching this interview just from that little story right there. I mean, that's huge. Now let me also talk to you about the service providers, because your business is unique in that you need customers, you need the people that need something moved, but you also need the movers. So it's a two-sided market, really. How have you acquired the service providers? How are you recruiting them? Is there any words of wisdom there?
It's always come pretty easy for us. We provide, if we can get the customers, the one thing that all businesses want is more customers. So that's a pretty sweet carrot to kind of dangle in front of them. More recently, we've just focused on building a platform that they could run their businesses on. There's a lot of companies out there that do kind of lead aggregation and are trying to do like the service marketplace, but there's no one else out there really doing it specifically for these moving companies. And so we've tried to build a platform specifically to movers and just be this software basically they can use for free to move their company, to run their company off of. One of my people used to say, like, we don't need any marketing fluff. Let's just make a tasty pie, because when you have a tasty pie, everyone wants a piece of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that, consumer side's a little different, but on the service provider side, it's, let's just make the best software out there that everyone wants to use, make it easy, make it free, and then hopefully they'll stick around and take the jobs that we make percentage on as well.
Yeah, it seems like you guys arrived at the same advice we've heard so many times on here, which is, you have to find product market fit. You have to have something that's just really delivering value, and then you can do things to grow on top of that. You can be wise about what you do beyond that, but without that, like you said, without the tasty pie, it doesn't matter how much you market your restaurant. They'll come once, but they won't come back, and they may not come at all when the word of mouth gets around. And so I think you guys are absolutely right on that. And so let me get this straight, though. You guys are providing tools for the companies like Pod and those kind of things. It's a white label marketplace, but then you're also providing tools to the service providers, the small guys as well. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We consider the service providers, those small mom and pop moving companies, the biggest part of our customers. If we have good service providers, then customers will come. Mm-hmm. And so to the service providers, we do scheduling, we do credit card processing, we do insurance products, and we kind of lumped all this together into this kind of here's all the software you need to run your moving company, along with products like like we handle the credit card processing for them, mm-hmm. and try and make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, this is great. Now I'm starting to really see the genius of HireAHelper. You went into a market that didn't have a lot of software, and you became the software of an entire market. Is that right?
That's the goal. I think we're a long way from really perfecting it. But that's I think after we finish adding this, we're almost at this last zero, and we're ready to go on to the next one. I think that's really going to be our focus. For the next 5 years is really going to be just dominating that software and making sure that every moving company is using our software.
Yeah, Mark Andreessen said that software is eating the world. And that's obvious when it comes to online things like social networks or whatever, mobile things, apps. But you're really an example of software is truly eating the world. You have Uber doing it with taxi. You have you guys doing it with moving. And there's no end to where software is going to go. And so I think your example is good. If you see a market that is not software heavy. It will be in the future, so why not be the player that goes in and provides the infrastructure of software that everybody can play ball on, because there's going to be huge opportunities there. Now let me ask you this. It's kind of a final, parting words here. As you think about your own journey and you think about the entrepreneurs you've bumped into, what's the best piece of advice that you have for any startup that's trying to grow?
I would say, all the advice that I got when when we were starting out, I just don't know if it's applicable to everyone. The one thing that I would say is, you just got to reach out. The resources are there. I met an entrepreneur who had, started I think it was a retirement homes chain, and it made $100 million off of these retirement homes that he had sold. And he was saying how he did it, and he said, I just read the business books and did what they said, and like it was the easiest thing in the world. He's like, everyone reads these books and no one does it. So, and that stuck with me as for a while now. As one of the more successful people I've met is, going out, getting the advice is half the battle, and taking the advice and using it is the other half. And it's not difficult. Like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's been done to some extent, in some area. And there's always someone who has some kind of similar experience who can kind of help guide you through it. And the thing that you'll find that's surprising is that the people out there who've done it before, more often than not, are going to be, willing and happy to share that advice with you and help you.
Yeah. Well, Mike, this has been a great episode. Again, thank you so much for coming on Growth Hacker TV and just sharing all your wisdom.
All right. Thank you for having me.